Wayne Bavin Show.
Living our Suffolk lives together.
BBC Radio Suffolk.
Main story on the BBC website this morning then is the fact that the pound has fallen to record lows against the dollar as markets react to the UK's biggest tax cuts in 50 years that were announced last week. In early Asia trade, the sterling dropped to $1.03 before regaining some ground to stand at about $1.05 on Monday morning. Right, what can me and you do to kind of help ourselves in this situation? Dan Woodruff is the founder of Woodruff Financial Planning, based in Langham, and he's helped a number of clients here in Suffolk. He joins us on the line now. Hi, Dan.
Good morning. Lovely to speak to you.
Thanks for coming on. A lot of people won't understand this. It's gobbledygook to a lot of people. Just remind us again, then, the pound falling against the dollar. What does that mean for me and you and the average person on the street?
Well, I think we can use the pound as a kind of a measure of how the economy is doing versus other economies. So the pound has been falling generally versus the dollar for some time now, since the start of the year. But in fairness, other economies have been doing that too. So the euro and the yen as well. And so that's because we can see a recession coming globally. And what do investors want to do? They want to put their money in the safest place, so the biggest economy. However, since last week, the markets have reacted quite badly to the announcements by the Chancellor, and it started to fall a lot faster and further. So in general terms, what your earlier commentator was saying is very true. You know, we tend to import more than we export, so imports become more expensive and exports are cheaper to those buying them. But because we bring more in, it tends to put the cost of goods up in your pocket. So, you know, at a time we've got high inflation, we're fueling that inflation bubble to risk making the inflation last longer, and the cost of goods are going to go up, aren't they, as a result?
There was criticism of the Chancellor's mini budget last week, wasn't there? Some people thought it was great. Yeah, this is brilliant. They're giving us our national insurance back that they took off us. Lots of criticism, though, that this is making the rich richer and taking from the poor again. People who are less well off, it's going to hit their pockets hard again. And this is an example of this, that the markets have reacted. And, shopping in our baskets to our pyjamas, to our jeans, it's all going to go up, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the reason why, I can't say for certain, but it looks to me like the markets are reacting this way because they see it as a gamble. So yes, we've had low growth in the last 10 or 15 years, and we do need to improve growth. But what we're doing, the solution the government is proposing is to borrow money, give it to proportionally more to the wealthier in society. But our taxes have gone up anyway. But their solution is to borrow that money at a time when interest rates are going up, the cost of borrowing for the government is going up, and this won't help, by the way. On Friday, gilt rates, which is what the government uses to borrow money off the markets, that shot up as well. And so we're in a risk of a spiral at the moment unless something is done to control this. The obvious thing to control it, I suppose, will be for the Bank of England to step in again, as they did last week, and raise interest rates. And of course, what does that do? It puts the cost of borrowing up for people listening now. And so that's fine if you're on a fixed rate, but for those people coming off fixed rates in their mortgages, they're going to find a steep increase in the cost of borrowing, and maybe that will affect the housing market too, because if the cost of borrowing goes up, first-time buyers are going to find it more difficult to borrow as much to buy a property, and of course it's going to filter through the system. It doesn't sound great, does it, to be honest with you?
No, listen, it's worrying. There's some new data out today, Dan, that says 75% of therapists are saying the public's mental health has declined compared to last year. Nearly 9 in 10 are blaming the cost of living on their poor mental health. In terms of planning to lessen our anxieties, to ease our mental anguish, what can we do? How can we plan? Can we be more stringent?
Well, it depends on your situation, obviously, but in simple terms, the first thing anyone should ever do is look at their budget. And I think we're all guilty of letting that kind of thing slide. And every time I do this annually myself, I go back through all of my income and expenditure items, look at what I spend, and it always surprises me how much money just sort of leaches out the door. And so if you're finding things tough, the first thing to do is to address that, no matter whether you're on a low income or a high income. The principle is the same. If you've got more money going out than coming in, there's going to be a problem, and it's going to cost you more to borrow. And so if you haven't got savings, the only place to go is to look at your budget, and you can obviously strip that down to a point. There's no that you can't stop spending money when prices are going up, and so potentially you might have to look at other options to increase your income. And there are opportunities to increase your income if you're in the working employed, because there aren't many people looking for jobs right now. So you basically have to grab the bull by the horns and look at the truth of the matter. I think that's the first place.
You've got to do something about it. You can't just sit back and kind of ride the storm. You've got to do something, haven't you?
Yeah, I think so. There's no point just sitting there waiting, because we know this is coming, don't we? We know that it's going to be a difficult winter, even though the government has intervened massively to help us keep energy bills down. It's still going to be more than double what it was a year ago for almost everybody, unless you were lucky enough to fix for a long period of time, which of course most people don't do. So so it's going to be a difficult winter, especially for those on fixed incomes like pensioners or those on state benefits or the low paid. They're going to find it particularly difficult, and that's why, of course, the budget last week was getting criticism, because there wasn't really anything done to help those kind of people apart from freezing energy bills, which of course is a big deal, I suppose.
We sat here last week following the mini budget, and we asked our guest last week, what money would we see back in our pockets as a direct result of this mini budget. Now we've kind of dug into exactly what the Chancellor said, and this has happened. The pound has fallen. Do you think we'll see notable changes in our pockets quite soon? We're going to have less money in our pockets, aren't we, because of this?
I think it depends on who you are. So if you're at the very top of the tree, you're going to be seeing a significant change, and of course that's where the criticism comes from. At the lower end of the scale, for most of the people, you're probably going to, you've had some money come back, but they've taken money in other ways through the freezing of income tax allowances and things like that. So actually, the net result is still worse than it would have been a couple of years ago in terms of tax. Actually, they've given back what they were going to take away in recent times. So the overall net effect is negative from a tax perspective for almost everybody, and add to that the increase in the cost of living, this average of about 9.9% at the moment. For some people that's going to feel a lot higher. If your income is low, you're spending proportionately more on energy and on food and things like that, and so that affects certain proportions of the society in a greater way, doesn't it? So I think it's going to be a difficult winter for those who are on lower incomes and lower wages, because you can already see that, can't you? Food bank use is going up. People are already talking. You listen to energy providers, their debt, their clients' debt is going up. People can't afford to pay.
Well, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Dan Woodruff, thank you, founder of Woodruff Financial Planning. You have to do something. You can't just sit back and think it'll be all right. You have to do something.